Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday Night Live. I'm glad to see everybody here. I see some people here in the chat. Sorry I was late. So I'm really looking forward to tonight's little discussion that we're doing, which is going to be about discernment. So, discernment, as we know, we have to be discerning of information. We have to be discerning of information from the mainstream media and the government and all of these sources like corporations and things like that. However, we've also crossed into an area that we need to start being discerning of alternative information too, because now there's a huge incentive for alternative information. So originally, when we were just looking at the mainstream narratives, we basically were seeing that there's incentives, there's vested interest in mainstream narratives, corporations, uh, religious groups, etc. There's, sorry, hold on. I need to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. And so basically, we understood that. We understand why you have to CNN and Fox News, why we need to be discerning of some of the information that's put out because there's advertisers, there's a lot of money at stake. We understand when corporations say stuff, there's a lot of information that could be put out because money to be made, potential, lobbying and different things that happen for bills, etc., things from the government. But now, as of recently, we've stepped into the point where individual content creators like myself and others um, now are also profiting and benefiting from sharing information. And that can also become skewed. So that's the difference right now that I think I'm starting to see. And I've been so triggered and frustrated this week, like it's out of control. So that's why I wanted to talk about this topic because it's real hot. I'm too hot on this topic because, okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is unfortunately, sad to say, Disclosure Fest, which was supposed to be this weekend, is unfortunately canceled due to wildfires in California. So it was supposed to be in Lake Castaic. Right now, Castaic is on evacuation warning. And then after that, the Castaic as well, the lake is being used as a staging ground for firefighters, and they don't have the fire under control. So it's Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This, we don't know how bad that it could be. And also, it's an outdoor event. There could be ash. It could be dangerous for people. So I'm sad to say that we're unfortunately had to cancel Disclosure Fest. Now, the reason that I'm a little hot on this topic right now is because so many people, when I posted about that, especially on TikTok, I'm looking at you guys over here, especially on TikTok, when I posted about it, there was so many people that their immediate response was, oh, well, this is planned. Oh, well, what a coincidence. And it's like, I think we've missed the mark when I think the spirituality and the conspiracy communities are starting to miss the mark. They've lost compassion. It's very upsetting to me that if you hear that that there's all this land burning, animals are dying, people are losing their homes potentially, people could be losing their lives. This happens whenever there's wildfires, people lose things. They lose loved ones, they lose their homes, animals die. It's terrible what's happening. And to me, this initial response that everyone like on TikTok went to right away, like really pissed me off. Because first of all, California wildfires are happening all the time, you know? And so immediately, if you hear that some tragedy is happening, then why is the first response to be, well, I guess the evildoers are at it again? And it's like, that's why I need to talk about discernment because the mark has been lost. And the other big thing that is pissing me off on the same note is the Kate Middleton stuff. And you know how bad it has to be for me to start defending the royal family. For me to start defending the royal family, you guys, you know, you really crossed the line. You really went too far. You really got too stupid in the comments. Not you guys watching. I know you guys watching are normal, which is also crazy that us crazy people became the normal ones lately in society. So with the Kate Middleton stuff, you know, there's a lot of people, channelers, psychics, spiritual people that have started to spread so much false information about someone who has cancer. And this is why I want to talk about this first before we get into I have different things about discernment. I have a lot of different notes about things when you're taking in information to take into consideration. But if you hear that someone has cancer, why on earth would someone's first thought be, "Oh, she's a clone. She's dead and they cloned her." That means like you've missed the mark. That means that, and this is where we're going to get into the personal bias. So, personal bias is something that we are all experiencing, right? So sometimes we'll look at say a personal bias that probably a lot of us have. If we were to see something on the mainstream news um about like say Biden or Trump or something like that, people are going to have a personal bias. There's some people who hate Trump, there's some people who hate Biden, some of us hate them both. But basically, there's going to be this personal bias. So when we take in information, we have to consider that, okay, I'm looking at the lens through my perception. So when I see mainstream news, I know that my perception is that I don't trust the mainstream news that much. So we have to be able to identify our personal bias in general. So that's really important because what I'm seeing happening right now, and this also with the Terrence Howard stuff, this is kind of tacking onto that too, because with the Terrence Howard stuff, this guy was talking absolute nonsense, word salad, mumbo jumbo. And because people have such a personal bias about, oh, wow, they silence people who have good ideas, they immediately think that anyone who believes in something that is alternative is true. So a lot of these people who were like, escape the matrix, ended up in a whole new matrix that is the same. It's like literally the same. So it's like instead of like, oh, don't believe anything mainstream media, I understand that. But then to believe everything that goes against the mainstream media is stupid. It's so stupid. And I'm watching it, and it's like watching people think that anything that disagrees with the mainstream narrative is instantly true. And this is the other thing too, is that the second you start to use your own critical thinking, even within these spaces, you have people like this who are going to say you're an agent. And that's the other thing too, because I covered the Harvard paper about the aliens. No, I have discernment, you dickwad. I'm not in the mood for anybody. Let me tell you that. Like, I haven't been in the mood because the stupidity is at a all-time high. It is groundbreaking temperatures of stupidity lately. And a lot of people got on the conspiracy train a couple years ago. As you guys know, I've been down these rabbit holes a long time. I already went through my spiritual psychosis stage long before y'all. So I understand that a lot of people are still in their spiritual psychosis phase. I get it. It's part of awakening. However, the thing is that I cover say for example, I covered the Harvard stuff, where Harvard said that aliens might already be on Earth. And basically what they do um, is this research paper was nothing new. It was a lot of recycled information that all of us in this like unknown space already know. So if you're already into aliens and you're already into the unknown and you're into cryptids and you're into interdimensional stuff, then everything that was in the Harvard paper was kind of like a summary of that information. And it used a lot of sources that we've been sourcing for a long time. But it was national news. And because I'm someone who covers this topic, of course I'm going to cover when the national news is covering this. When Harvard is finally saying the stuff that we've been talking about for years, of course I'm going to read the entire article. I'm not just going to read the mainstream narrative. I'm going to go to the primary source and go to the research paper itself, read it, summarize it, and then give it as a short video. And the amount of people that said stuff like this idiot that said, "Oh, you're an agent." I'm like, no, you actually lack comprehension." Because the thing with the comprehension is being able to understand that I'm not saying, "Oh, let's suck Harvard's dick." I'm not saying that. And I know a lot of people are gonna be in the comments later on the YouTube being like, "Oh, the language. Oh my god." I don't care. I am so tired of everybody being stupid in the comments. So, at no point was it for me to say, "Oh my god, Harvard's the best. Oh, Harvard is this golden standard of what we should believe on conspiracies and aliens and counterculture stuff." No, it was simply a news article that everybody was talking about, and people were just regurgitating the same little bit of information again and again and again. And I wanted to look at the actual paper, look at the actual sources, look at the tone of the paper. And honestly, the tone wasn't bad. The tone wasn't bad. So, and it was a lot of information that we already talked about. Inner Earth, Admiral Byrd, things being under the ice in Antarctica. I mean, Ian's here. Hello, Ian. So much of Linda's work, Linda Moulton Howe's work, was summarized, even though without crediting her. All of this work that Linda has been doing for decades, so much of it was summarized in this paper. So, like, Linda has been doing this for 47 years, and this Harvard paper actually did reference a lot of the things that she's been researching. So, this is what was said was nothing new. However, I wanted to see what the tone of it was. I wanted to see what information it was. And then you have all of these people in the comments that are like, "Oh, she's a Fed. She's a secret agent." You guys, if I was a secret agent, I would have all your fucking money right now. Like, I would have a lot more. I would literally be on everything, everywhere. Like, all of the stuff is my own connections and my own stuff that I do myself. It wouldn't have taken me a year of Tuesday night lives to finally get a professional mic. If I was a secret agent, right? Like, I literally would have gotten this mic on day 1. I wouldn't have had to have people send me money uh to get this camera that I use for my lives. So, from people's donations. The government would have paid for it, and I would have had, like, all these crazy, like, come on, it's so stupid. So, this is why looking at, discernment. So now let's get to some of the information. That was my little feisty intro to the topic because yeah, someone saying they haven't been watching you for 2 years. Exactly. Like, that's the thing is for the last 2 years, I have distilled these big topics, these complicated topics. I've distilled them into very short form, very simple form. And now you got these people popping up out of nowhere being like, oh, wow, you don't believe in Terrence Howard? You must be stupid. You must be a secret agent." Oh, but the award-winning actor, part of the Hollywood cult, you believe him. He's not a disinformation agent. Okay. He's not a disinformation agent. Okay. If you say so. I'm not falling for it. So let's get back to the personal bias. Is that what's happening now in these, I'm going to call it conspirituality spaces, because it's this spirituality, conspiracy place that we're in. People are losing their discernment because of their personal bias. So just because Terrence Howard said something that was against the mainstream, it made it automatically true. But a lot of people came to the conspiracy world recently, since 2020, because of critical thinking, because there was all of this stuff that was happening in the news that was lacking critical thought. Why you could walk into a restaurant, but you need to wear a mask. But then once you sit down, you could take it off. Or you have a little piece of plexiglass between you and the cashier, but then the cashier touches all the stuff you just touched, and how there was X's on the floor and all of these dumb things. So a lot of people came from normal thinking to conspiracy worldview thinking because there was a lack of critical thinking in what was being spewed out in the mainstream narrative. But what happened now is that people have gone too far. The pendulum, they escaped the matrix to get stuck in a worse matrix, because now they're in a matrix where anyone who says anything against the mainstream narrative is automatically right. And then two, there has been too many phonies, frauds, grifters, tricksters, and people trying to shyst people, that now all of these people use this thing of they're trying to silence me, they're trying to silence me. And then all you have to do is say that. And a bunch of idiots immediately are like, oh, wow, they're trying to silence him. Just like Terrence Howard said, how, oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson insulted my work and he wouldn't even look at it. And he said like this stuff about Nikola Tesla. And then Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I'm not a fan of, came out and did a response to the Terrence Howard claims. And he basically said that Terrence Howard sent him these files, his papers, and that Neil deGrasse Tyson actually wrote through, read it, and gave notes on different things, because this is how the scientific method works. So even though he knew that this was kind of not legitimate information, he still handled it with respect and gave him notes and said like, okay, well, this, because of this has actually been disproven. You should look into this work. And then Terrence took that as, oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson like wouldn't take me seriously, just like he didn't take Nikola Tesla seriously. And yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson is part of the club. Exactly. And also whatever is going on with him, I don't like that he doesn't think outside the box, and that he thinks that only what has been proven up to this point is what is true. But literally part of science is to come up with new things. So when it comes to, so I enjoyed his video because he came with receipts. He actually did respond to Terrence Howard. He actually read the file. He gave him notes on different things, because this is what would happen in like a peer-reviewed study, right? So he did his own little fake version of a peer review for a paper that was not really legitimate. But it was very different than what Terrence Howard said. But then what Terrence Howard says is they're trying to silence me. And then all of a sudden, they say like, don't be the sheeple. Well, then what are they called when they're sheeple who believe in every conspiracy? And, like, it's gone way too far. And a lot of conspiracies are true. That's the problem, is that a lot of conspiracies are actually true. But not everybody that says these things have the right intentions. So that's the other thing I want to talk about. Let me see. I have a little bit of notes here. Okay. So the number one thing that we need to talk about when it comes to discernment is consider vested interest. So consider who benefits from this. So let's say, for example, the people who are talking about Kate Middleton right now. And like I said, you know how fucking far you got to go for me to start defending the royal family, because I'm not a fan. I can barely tell them apart. What was I saying that one time? I was calling the guy Henry. And then people on the chat was like, "It's Prince Harry." And I'm like, "Wait, which one is he married to?" Like, I really don't know. I don't like the royal family. I don't like monarchies. And I really don't follow them. So I don't know very much. However, people were making all of these conspiracies about Kate Middleton, which forced her to have to come out and say that she has cancer. And I'm sure that nobody wants to share that information. People don't even want to share that information with their family. So then you had all these people that were making conspiracies double down and then say things like, "Oh, she's dead and this is a clone and the video is AI." And it's like, okay. And then people claiming that they've got this information from some type of otherworldly source or that they've channeled it or this or that. And this is why we have to do when we are taking in information going forward, we need to say who benefits from this information being released? Who benefits from this? So if someone is saying Kate Middleton is a clone and she's dead, go watch my videos, then we need to like think, what is the benefit here? And, like say for example, when I put my Terrence Howard video out, there was no benefit for me. It was literally my whole following on TikTok especially turned on me and hated me for that. Like there's a couple of random people that were like, "Oh, this was a great breakdown." People that I know personally were like, "Oh, this is a great breakdown." Other creators liked it. But like literally my whole like comment section is about how I'm a fed, I'm an idiot, I just don't get it. Even though I literally talk in the video about how that's what happens in 1984 is that when false information comes out that is so stupid, like in 1984, they give the example of 2 plus 2 equals 5. Now we have a Hollywood actor that is talking about 1 times 1 equals 2. And they want you to deny actual reality, actual truth, and then spread this narrative that, oh, well, if you don't get it, it's because you're not smart. So, like, think about that with these things. So, when you see people spreading information, because also, like I said in the beginning of this, before it was only the mainstream media that was benefiting. It was corporations that were benefiting. It was the government that was benefiting. But now, each and every one of us, people like me included, you know, benefit from sharing certain information now. Before, you would maybe get killed or silenced for sharing certain information. Now, you can make thousands of dollars on TikTok for the views. You can make thousands of dollars for subscribers, for getting them to join your things, all of that. So, this is another thing that we need to be mindful of when we're taking in alternative information because now there's people who can say, "Oh, I have this information and this information is exclusive to me because I'm getting it from aliens. I'm getting it from channeling. I'm getting it from my psychic powers." There's things like that. So that's the one thing that first we have to start thinking about is who benefits from this? How much does this person benefit from it? Like, of course, we're all making videos, but it's like, it's pandering. It's pandering a lot of times. It's like some of these people, I don't even know if they believe what they're saying anymore or if they're just doing it to go viral. Like it's gotten a bit far. I feel like the message is that it is important and I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you fully are saying there. Some of them are grifters. Exactly. And also, maybe they're not even grifters initially. Maybe they now have more expenses and have to start playing into it and feeding into it more and more and more. How do I feel about tarot readers? I think it's great if people, I'm not saying people shouldn't do these things. There should be psychics, there should be tarot readers, there should be channelers, there should be truth seeker people, there should be reporter people, there should be independent journalism, there should be people who break down conspiracies on the internet. All of that should be. But now it's become too cloudy because now it's becoming like really, and I think that it's not wrong for people to profit and benefit from things. So I'm not going as far as saying that. People have to survive. All of these things are the equivalent of several full-time jobs. Just doing like these different platforms is like 3 full-time jobs. It's like, and then you have to do research and you have to do this. So, I'm not saying people shouldn't benefit. I think you should support people that you like what they're doing. However, if something starts to ring a little bit off to you, it's okay to be like, you know, I don't know if I how I feel about this. So, like, say, for example, now people are saying Kate, not only is Kate Middleton dead, now they're saying she's alive, but she's gonna be like these other things. It's like they're doubling down instead of admitting that they are wrong. And I don't even think that you have to admit I was wrong. You could say, my perspective has changed. I got more information and now I feel differently. That's what it takes. Like, I've told you guys this before. I was very into some of the secret space program stuff. And I was, some of my videos on TikTok are still up that are talking about some of those quote unquote secret space program whistleblowers. I'm not going to take them down because then they're going to ruin the series and you're going to miss parts of the series. However, I have admitted that since the last year, for the last year now, I've been realizing that a lot of these people are not authentic and that a lot of these people might not have clear intentions or motives. And some of them I flat out think are liars and should be stopped, you know? So that's what we just have to be mindful of is, it's okay to say that your perspective has changed. It's okay to say that I got more information and now I feel different. And if people are wrong, flat out wrong, like say for example, Kate Middleton, they all said she was dead and she was a clone, and then she's walking out instead of people saying, "Oh, I got now that there's more information, now that I've seen a video of her, I feel differently." And now you can't just say like, "Oh, I feel differently now." People say, "Oh, well, actually, that was a clone that was walking because clearly she looked too good to have cancer." What a disgusting, shitty, rotten thing to say as people who are priding themselves on being truth seekers, as people who are priding themselves on being spiritual, having zero compassion for someone that is probably actually really sick, and then to say, "Oh, now that we finally saw her, first she's AI and she's dead, and now that she's out, they're like, oh, that can't be her because she doesn't look sick enough." Like, it's rotten. It's nasty. Oh, a quick break. Thank you, Turn Racing. Hair and makeup on point tonight. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Someone had to bring in the good vibes. You can always simmer down a Leo with a compliment. I mean, it is what it is. You can always simmer down a Leo with a compliment. Um, so then they are becoming transparent as well, low frequency thinking. Exactly. It's very true, Mel, because now these people are exposing themselves in a way. And it's like they're diminishing their own credibility. But then there's a lot of people who are now more confused than ever because they're digging their heels in. So let's talk about um okay. So we don't want to automatically, it's obvious we don't want to automatically accept information from the government, right? We don't want to do that. We don't want to automatically accept information from the government. We don't want to automatically accept information from the news. We don't want to automatically accept information from corporations. We don't want to, even things like Harvard. Harvard puts out a research paper. We don't want to automatically accept information from them. However, we don't want to automatically accept information from people who are saying something, you know? Like, I think it's smart for everyone. as the more that things get clouded, like, we also have more information intake than what we've ever had in history. Like, there's no time in history that the average person was literally receiving this much information in. We're receiving all day long on social media information, 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 the news information, and this, and then we still have our personal lives. So, with all of that, we have to understand that it becomes difficult over time to truly be able to keep receiving information and see it all clearly. So that's why it's so important for us to acknowledge our personal bias. So I know if I see something, let's say, for example, if I see something about the vaccine, like if I see something like, oh, Anthony Fauci is in court right now admitting that he's a liar. My personal bias, if I'm being honest with myself, is hell yeah, he is. Of course he is, because he did lie. But then I have to take a second and be like, okay, let me see if I can go to a primary source, if I can go to and find actual information from this court case and see if he's actually admitting it, you know? So it's like, it's important for us to go to the source if we can, or go to trusted sources. But even still, with your trusted sources, still have that discernment. Did he lie for the greater good? In my opinion, no. Um, Someone said something about hair. Okay, I'm not sure about that. Um, yeah, exactly. So now we also have to think about not only our personal bias, we have to think about our emotional bias. So a lot of people lately are avoiding feeling anything, right? So when people hear that there's wildfires that are coming through California and that this Disclosure Fest had to be canceled because of the wildfires, instead of feeling that, like, oh man, I hope people are okay, they say, evildoers at it again. And it's like, now you have put yourself in a position to lack compassion for humanity, to lack compassion for the earth, to lack compassion for animals, and you become on the personal bias and then the avoiding of emotions, where now you become a dumbass NPC in the comments. It is what it is. And sorry, my can is sweating here and I don't want my stuff to get wet. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you for the super chat, Julie. I was thinking, how do I decipher what's what with comments and you read my mind? Who benefits? That makes the most sense. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, thanks, Julie. So that's the thing, is with comments, it's a little different than the content creator. So a content creator could benefit from different things, especially like these YouTube news channels or things like that. Like, who benefits, you know? But also with comments, that's the other thing, is that there's a personal bias and a truth bias. And also, a lot of times people in comments don't have any other outlet to say this. They can't be verbally abusive towards their family. They can't say what they want at their job. So then they spew hatred in the comments and they get all of these ideas out. And now I heard someone say recently, people will kind of go through, they say the reason why some, like, maybe spiritual content creators are a little less likely to go through a spiritual psychosis than the people watching it is because the person doing the content gets to say it out loud. They get to say it, they get to expand on that opinion. They sometimes have to say it again and again. They have to defend it in the comments. They have to make multiple videos about it. But then the person who's only consuming the information and not getting to talk about it, it's intake, 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 and it becomes overload. There's no output. So you need some level of output. So I understand why people go a little crazy in the comments, but at the same time, we can't consider ourselves spiritual. People can't consider themselves light workers and all of these things when their immediate response when they hear someone has cancer, oh, they must be lying. It must be a clone. It must be a grand scheme, you know? Or they hear about a fire and they say, well, there they are. The evildoers tried to do something again. And not saying that any of those things, there might not be a possibility that there's some truth in some of these things, because, as people who believe in conspiracies, there's definitely crazy stuff. And that's the other thing that we have to remember is that because spiritual awakening is when your perception expands. So, oops. So when your perception expands, it takes a while to go from here to here. And when you're in the process of here to here, of that mental expansion of information, of awareness, of knowing, it's a bit of a rocky process. So you're here and you're grounded information, and now you find out this stuff is a lie. Oh my God, they lied about this. They lied about this. They lied about this. Oh my God, these celebrities that I thought were all this are actually something else. They're actually doing all this other stuff. And then so when we go from this to this, that transition can be a little rocky. And that's where, like the quote unquote spiritual psychosis happens or comes from. And, just because people go through a little bit of spiritual psychosis doesn't mean that what they're talking about is fake, too. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that people in that state are wrong all the time. Sometimes they've gone too far, but then sometimes they are right. And it's just that adjustment period of going from one bit of information to the next. So just an awareness, expansion of your information like that. So, like, say, that happens with conspiracies. We think the world is one way, and then we're like, oh my God, the world is run by pedos. And then that's disrupting. And then it makes it hard to know what to believe, because the worst of the worst could be possible. Oh, thanks, Jenny. Thanks for the super chat. You guys are so nice. Wow. You guys are really showing off today. um, Not releasing Epstein's client list turned everyone into conspiracy theorists. You are right about that. You are right about that. That's for sure. And that's a big part of it, was we see that a lot of people were getting away with things, and it causes people to not know what's true anymore, and to automatically believe that it's, oh, anything that the mainstream says. And that's what they messed up. The mainstream messed up. They had already been lying for all this time, but then they went a little too far with their lies. Then they went too far with their lies, and then they lost the game. So I want to talk a little bit about something that I talked about in the Terrence Howard video. So there's something called truth basis. Oh, no, sorry, truth bias. What am I writing basis? Truth bias of my own notes, of my own handwriting. Truth bias. So a truth bias in general is when most people, because most people are not liars. I mean, people lie, little white lies, but most people are not con artists. Most people are not liars. Most people are not doing something like that. So inherently, most people will believe that other people are telling the truth. Because if you're honest and you have no other reason for other people to think that they're being dishonest, it's called the truth bias. So, truth bias is actually what allows liars, scammers, cheaters to get away with stuff. So, because of this automatic thing that honest, normal people think, they don't think that, oh, this person would be lying, because they wouldn't get on there and lie about it. They wouldn't just make up a false story. So majority of the population has a truth bias. Now, you go a step further, what I talked about in my Terrence Howard video is something that I called it, okay? I know I probably won't get credit for it, but a truth seeker bias. Because what's happened is the truth seeker bias is basically, because we've been lied to so much in the government, in the news, in the corporations, in our institutions, in our religions, in the way that things are taught. So, because we've been lied to so much, and we've had our minds completely like flipped upside down as to what is true, we start to get a truth seeker bias, where now we automatically go to this feeling of, this must not be true. This must be a trick. This must be another thing. And this is like the big they. And I believe there's a they, you know? I'm not saying that's the thing that I hate about the they them stuff. They was ours. As conspiracy theorists, that was ours. They belonged to us. We were the ones talking about they and them, the mysterious they them. That was ours and it was stolen from us. And so they were up to something. They are tricking us. Stuff like that. So now we've gotten so far into a world where so much has been uncovered. A lot of it has been proven true. Look at the Epstein stuff. Things like that have been true. So this whole they're hiding it from us. They don't want us to know. That becomes a truth seeker bias. And then you automatically feel that everything is a lie. So then you look at regular information, like some people be able to look at someone who has cancer, look at a wildfire, look at these things that we should have sympathy and compassion for as spiritual people. And then after that, be able to be like, oh, now everything must be a lie. Everything must be not true. It must all be some big scheme against us. And that said, not every single thing in mainstream media or mainstream education or mainstream government stuff is a lie. Not every single thing is a lie. Let's see. We're all evolving. We're at the front lines of humanity's evolution. It's a great place to be. It sure is. The harder you try to convince people, the more they pull away. Just know your truth, and when they are ready, they will ask and come to you. Yep. Um, most things are a bit of truth and lies. That's why people get confused. And that's the thing too, is that we've become so polarized with everything, is that it became in this very like divisive left and right way of thinking. And with this left and right way of thinking, black and white thinking, good and bad, good and evil, it became so polarized that people want it to be one way. They want everything to be a lie, or they believe that everything's the truth. And in reality, most things are in between. Most things are, and we already know, like when you really get into the conspiracy stuff, it's already been said that when disinformation is being purposely sent out from the government, they will do the 80-20 rule. So they'll do 80% truth with 20% lie, or 20% truth with 80% lie. And those little bits of truth or those little bits of lie make people believe the whole thing. They believe the whole theory. They believe the whole story then. That's exactly how misinformation so misinformation, by the way, guys, is when somebody does it unknowingly. You know, someone is spreading misinformation, it's because they believe it and they're mistaken. Disinformation is when it's the government, usually, purposely putting out false information. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that there's a difference between misinformation and disinformation, and it's mostly the motive. So let's see. Let's look at something about critical thinking. So there was this study or whatever. I don't even know if it was as big as to be a study. But basically, they realized that if people read something in a difficult font, like let's say you have like a book with small font that is not very easy to read, you're more critical of the information. So when you're reading something that is either not very clear, maybe not written that well, or maybe if it just the font is not like aesthetically pleasing. So like, a lot of like old books would be in like Courier or something like that. And a lot of times you read that and it's a little harder to read. You look at the Bible is hard as hell to read. The words are like that big. There's like 20 columns. There's paragraphs that all have numbers. There's so much going on. So a lot of times people are going to read the Bible. It automatically makes you more critical of it because the information is difficult to intake. So think about that. If we were taking in this information through a different medium, would you believe it as easily? So when you read a news article, it's a lot harder to read a news article than it is to watch a video on that, to watch the news talk about it. When you watch the news talk about it, that's a very easy intake. So a very easy intake would be to watch a video. So then you think about this stuff. Is a lot of this like critical thinking started to go down as more videos come out? So when the video is like the easiest way for you to get the information, for someone else to read it, for someone else to break it down, for someone to simplify it, and then to package it in the most simple form. But if you were to take that same information, would you have accepted it easily if it was written and you read it yourself? Would you have accepted? Yeah, Comic Sans. Yeah, anything written in Comic Sans, I immediately don't believe in. Yeah, it sounds like the Bible needs a facelift. Exactly. Yeah, perception management campaign. And that's absolutely happening too. So, but that's another thing to think about is that sometimes when a bit of information is coming very easily, it's and you say that's why churches have preachers. Exactly. So you could read the Bible yourself, it might be very difficult. If you have this charismatic person up there that is like, "Hey, hey, hey, Jesus," and it's a lot easier to take in the information, then it's a lot easier for you to accept it as truth. You said Comic Sans is one of the best fonts for dyslexia. Everything has a place. Wow, that sucks. That sucks. It's so aesthetically unpleasing. So, and then the other thing too, of course, we have to consider motives. Okay. And that comes back to like the vested interest, like who benefits from this. But what is also someone's motive, right? So, like, because sometimes it's not only a benefit, sometimes the motive can be the benefit and the motive can be the same, but sometimes there could be other motives than just like um, money or attention. Sometimes, people put out information because I don't know, you know, it's something emotional for them or something psychological for them, you know? Yeah, putting out their ideologies, exactly. So, like, putting out their ideologies, so that could be, religious agendas, could have motives, political agendas almost always have motives. So, like, you look at these things of people online sharing information about different candidates, about different things, and maybe it's not a financial gain. Maybe it's not, a gain of some tangible form, but their ideology is so important to them. And there's a lot of people, sad to say, who will lie for their ideology. And this is what I think is partly happening with some of the secret space program people claim to be secret space program. Some of these people, yeah, there is financial gain, there is attention, there's power, there's women that then flock to them, so they get their rocks off, all of that. However, sometimes people will do these things because of their ideologies, because they feel so passionate about it. And that's not always a bad thing. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm saying to be aware of it. Like, say, for example, myself, my motive of sharing a lot of information is because it's my ideology that I care about. I do care about this stuff. So, of course, me even sharing this today, I have a motive. My motive, it doesn't need to be a motive, doesn't need to be negative, but I have a motive is that I do believe in a lot of different spiritual stuff, a lot of conspiracy stuff. I'm heavy on the aliens. And my motive is like, oh, people need to be able to discern information. People need to know that it's okay to listen to someone and then maybe change your mind on whether you believe the next thing that person says. And that's myself included. You know, it's okay to because everybody has some type of motive. Everybody wants to do something, and sometimes the motive could be helping people. Maybe they wanna help people, maybe they're thinking of helping people. So, motives are not all necessarily bad, but it is just something to think about because shit is getting murky. People are doubling down. Also, there's a lot of real problems in the world right now, And people are moving. So, like, obviously, everybody was obsessed with Kardashians and these celebrities and stuff. And that died down. People started not caring about celebrities anymore. They started not caring about all of that mainstream stuff. They don't give a shit what the Kardashians are doing anymore. The Kardashians have to do backflips and everything now to get attention like they used to. So the same thing could be happening with different people in this space, where they basically don't want to be a one trick pony. So they keep pulling stuff out their ass. They keep pulling more rabbits out of a hat instead of going down the rabbit hole. Whitney, you say that there are very few beliefs that have remained evergreen for all of your life. And that's a great way to be. It's a great way to be where um, you can change your opinion over time. It's actually, um, what do you what is the point of wearing a wig? What are you talking about? Honestly, the TikTok, like, I honestly, my dislike for TikTok is growing so bad that I hope Congress takes it. I'm so sorry, you guys, on watching on TikTok. I am so sorry that I'm actually hoping Congress takes it. And that's my own vested interest in I can't handle the assholes anymore. My motive of wanting Congress to take it. I know it's wrong. I know it's against democracy. I know it's against everything that I believe in. But part of me is like, just take it away. Just cleanse it. Just start the rapture. Just do it. Oh, thank you, Jordan. You're so sweet. No, I'm definitely getting to a point that is so annoying. Like, it's really so annoying because people have become, like, so far down of not knowing what to believe anymore that they basically will believe anything that is against the narrative, no matter how dumb. Mhm. Oh, hi, Johnny. How are you? Thank you. Mhm. Um, I know you guys. It's just, the people that are in the comments, it's also on Instagram too. Everybody is so this is the thing, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted. I mean, I'm impressed that you think I'm wearing a wig because I definitely need to get my hair done. But um what was I saying? They want this. What is your vested interest, huh? To derail me? What are you, a secret agent? Trying to silence me? Trying to prevent me from getting the real information out there? And that's what these people say. Like, that's what these, like, people on the internet who are, like, spewing bullshit always say. They're trying to silence me. They're watching me. They're trying to silence me. And it's like, no, mostly they're not. Mostly you said something stupid that got you reported, you know? You you hit this weariness around 2012 and was so over consciousness, and here we are in an exhausting decade later, but then there are gems like you who have come on the scene. Oh, thank you, Whitney. And that's the other thing too, that is another thing for us to be mindful of is that I don't know what it's called, but basically people will become a character of themselves. Like, say for example, Jordan Peterson, you know? Jordan Peterson started as one person, but then you have to keep playing this into your audience and to make it keep going. And you almost become a character of yourself. So the same thing goes for everybody and not even in a bad way. Like, even say like Joe Rogan, who I love Joe Rogan. I'm such a fan of Joe Rogan and still love to watch him. However, um people become a character of themselves. Lady Gaga became a character of Lady Gaga. All of these people, Taylor Swift is a character of Taylor Swift. Because what happens is that you have to feed the machine. So there's this book, it's one of my favorite fiction books. I'm not really a fan of fiction books. I just feel like if I'm going to read something, I'd rather read nonfiction or something weird or interesting or something like that. But my favorite fiction book is called Grendel. And you guys are probably familiar with Beowulf. So Beowulf was like the oldest piece of literature that had ever been found written in English, in the oldest form of English. So basically, like, like how the Odyssey is, like this long epic poem, and how like the Bhagavad Gita is a long epic poem to a degree. I think it's would still be considered, it's not what we call poems today, which are just like, a little meme post. But Beowulf was this long poem from, whenever it was. I don't know. It was the earliest form that was ever found in English. And the bad guy in this is Grendel. So Beowulf is the good guy. He's the hero. He's the one who saves the people. He saves the kingdom from this evil, ugly monster named Grendel. And Grendel is this big, horrible beast. And every night, Grendel comes in and he, all of the knights and everything are drinking their mead, their beer, basically. And he would come in and do horrible stuff, kill them, murder them, and they were living in fear. And then Beowulf was the one who would fight against this monster. And, this was written in, I don't know, 1700s, 1600s, I don't know, something like that. And so maybe older. And basically, not saying that people didn't speak English by that time, but this was the first document, the oldest document found. And so in 1970 something, I think the guy's name is John Carpenter. He wrote a book called Grendel, and it's from the perspective of the monster. And it is like one of my favorite books. It's like favorite fiction book because it's so beautiful. And it's written from the perspective of the monster. It's written, oh, wow. They're saying that it came from 1700 to 1000 AD. Oh, 700 to 1000 AD. Wow. Way, way, way. I was way off on my numbers. The year 700 is when it is debated to be from. So I didn't even realize it was that old. So, wow. Produced between 975 and 1025 AD. So a very long time ago. Over 1,000 years old, this piece of literature. And so Grendel, in the updated version, John Carpenter, he went from the perspective of the monster. And what's so beautiful about that is Grendel starts off, and the kind of backstory in the book is that Grendel is actually half monster and half human. And that's something I think that John Carpenter took into interpretation from it and used in his own thing. And so he himself is not accepted by the monsters, and he's not accepted by the humans either. And so he doesn't even know he's a monster because he never knew anything else. He lives in a cave with his mom. His mom doesn't really love him much because he's weird. It also is kind of like portrayed in this book that maybe the king who wants him shunned could actually be the father of the child. And basically, he lives kind of as this like kind of bastard child, and he doesn't even know what he is. How would he know what he is? He knows that he's different than his mom. He knows that the other monsters don't think very highly of him. So he ventures out into the world outside of the cave, and he ends up in this kingdom which is outside of where his cave is. And when he gets out into the kingdom, this is his first time seeing humans. And they're like, oh, God, a disgusting, hideous monster. It's so ferocious and disgusting. And he's like, oh, like I didn't know that I was a monster. And this book is so beautiful, so existential that it talks about how this 1,000-year-old monster that we like all read growing up for thousands of years. This has like been a story that the monster itself doesn't know he's a monster until other people start to call him one. And that makes sense, right? We only the reason I know what my name is because people called me my name. And then I was like, "Oh, I guess that's what I am. I guess that's who I am." Oh, I'm this. It's because I was told I was this. But if I was to just live on my own, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't have come to that conclusion. So it becomes this existential crisis where basically he's like so hurt at first. He's like, I'm not a monster. Damn, a monster? That sounds terrible. I'm not disgusting. I'm not ferocious. And then he realizes that he doesn't exist as anything else. So he ends up leaning into that character that is projected upon him. He ends up becoming the monster because he's like, oh, well, if they're saying I'm a monster, then I guess I am a monster. If they're saying I'm disgusting, then I guess I'm disgusting. And then he starts to act that way. So then he starts to come back into the kingdom and be like, oh, I'm ferocious. I'm going to kill half of your people tonight. And then he starts embodying this, and this gives him identity. This starts to give him a sense of purpose. So this is the thing, is that when we're projecting to people, you said sounds like a Beauty and Beast remake. Well, it's not really that. It's not a love story. It's an existential story of self-discovery. There's no love story in it. He's just seeing who he is. And he was not cursed to be this way. He wasn't a man that was cursed to be this way. He is this way. And he has been told that he's disgusting. So he starts to act that way. And then look at this in society, right? Look at someone like Trump. Trump initially came out probably with good intentions of the whole Make America Great. And then millions and millions of people said, you're a monster, you're disgusting, you're a racist, you're a pig, you're this, you should be taken out, you're that, you're this. And now some people look at that and go, oh, I'm going to go hide and die in my cave. But a lot of people are going to lean into it. And they're going to say, you know what? I am all those things. And I'm going to be more of those things. So these people who are so hateful of Trump, they're creating the monster. The same way that these people were creating the monster in Grendel. Grendel didn't want to hurt anyone. He didn't even know that he could hurt people until they started to tell him that he hurts people, until they told him that he's a monster. And this is also what's happening to men in society right now. Men are being told, you're dangerous, you're rapists, you're abusers, you're this, you're a monster, you're gross, you are all of these things. And now they're starting to be those things more. There's young boys who feel like, well, if that's what I am, then I'm going to be a douchebag. Then I'm going to be like this. And that's how you get Andrew Tate. And like what happens is Grendel became a character of Grendel. He became what people thought he was. And that started to work for him. That started to benefit him. That started to make him have purpose. So you could be saying all the negative things about people, and then you push them to be that way even more. So that's what's happening with a lot of stuff. And it's not necessarily a bad or evil thing. This is part of self-awareness and your identity, and it grows over time. So we look at some people who are maybe in the spiritual space. Don't go back to the original topic, which is you have these people who are figureheads in the spiritual space, people that like gurus and stuff. And these gurus, these teachers, these secret space program people, this whatever, who they are, they start to have to lean into it so much that they become a character of themselves. They become a version of themselves that it's almost like they're playing themselves. Like, look at someone like Lex Friedman. Like, I think Lex Friedman initially started as asking genuine questions. Now, Lex Friedman is playing a character of Lex Friedman, you know? Jordan Peterson is playing a character of Jordan Peterson at this point. And I'm not saying that to diminish them or say that they're bad, but this is this human process. And this is why it's so important to be true and authentic and be willing to change and be willing to take that sacrifice of like, oh, I've built this audience, but my audience wants this from me. And then when you allow the audience to start determining what they want from you, you start to lose yourself over time and you start to play into it. And that's how you get someone like an Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate puts this stuff out and then become so hated. You're the monster. And I mean, I'm not a fan. I really dislike him a lot. And I believe he did all the stuff that they said. However, everybody is like, you're this disgusting monster. You're the worst man on earth. You're the most hated guy. You're the worst misogynist ever to see light of day. And then he becomes the worst misogynist. Look at someone like, what's the girl? Pearl, you know? Yeah, the guy from Ancient Aliens with the hair. Exactly. He becomes a character of himself. He probably went to those first things with the hair, not realizing his hair was messy. And now he goes like probably like that before every time he gets on anything, right? So become a character of ourselves. So that's the other thing too, is that it's also very difficult as an artist or whatever you are to change. Like look at someone like like Black Sabbath or something. Black Sabbath sounded one way. And then they started coming out with like albums that sounded a little different at like some time. And Ozzy started doing more the hair metal stuff in the 80s. And it's like, then all those original fans are like, you changed. We hate you now. But it takes someone very brave to be able to change in front of an audience. It takes someone to be able to, still be true to themselves. So that's this thing to keep in mind when we go back to consider vested info. I don't know why I'm showing my notes. Consider vested info, consider motives. One of those motives sometimes is they've created this identity as this person. They've created this identity as this channeler, or they've created this energy as this psychic. And now that's their identity. And now they have to play into it. And then they're like, oh, if I admit that I was wrong about Kate Middleton, well, then I won't be believable then. And then my image will be gone. So instead, I'll just double down and become that monster, double down into it the same way that Grendel did. And that's why it's so important to not listen to what people say about you. So people you trust and love giving you genuine advice is one thing. Listening to what people say on the internet is another thing, is going to shift you into, or just haters in your life. It doesn't have to be just people on the internet. It's just like haters in your life. Like if you have someone in your life that's like, oh, you're so lazy. You're so lazy. You're always lazy. You're always late. You will start to play into that identity subconsciously without knowing. Someone says like, oh, you're just a messy person. You're just a klutz. You're just clumsy. You're just not that smart. And the person will start to become that person over time. When you become known for one thing, like say some of these debunkers on the same side, like we're talking about the spiritual gurus, how it happens. It happens to the debunkers. There's people who are such debunkers and they want to debunk everyone and debunk everything, that even when there's genuine information in front of them, their identity is to be a debunker. So then they need to debunk, right? Because then who am I? Oh, if I'm a debunker and all I do is debunk UFO videos and stuff like that, then if I admit that something could be true and that there really is evidence here and that maybe this one whistleblower or this one person's experience sounds real, then I might lose my identity. So then they double down and become this character of themselves. And that's what's just so important to remember when we're talking about like discernment, is also identifying that. And just because someone has become a character of themselves, as long as it's not detrimental, it doesn't mean that it's bad. Like I still think Jordan Peterson has some interesting things to say. I'm over Lex Friedman. I'm sorry. I'm so over Lex Friedman. I'm over it. But um, you know, people become a character of themselves. Look at like Andrew Huberman. Andrew Huberman became such a character of himself that behind closed door, he was so obsessed with the protocol of doing everything perfect that he ends up being a shitbag behind closed doors and has 6 different girlfriends and is leading all these girls on and has one girl in his house, another girl on a date, and then his other girlfriend is out of state while she's doing IVF to try to have a baby with him. It's like that's what happens too. Is this is what happens to like pastors and stuff sometimes. This is what happens to politicians. They become characters of themselves. And then all of a sudden they still need that outlet, right? They still need some way to get it out. So they're going to end up doing it, um, in their They're gonna end up doing it in private and doing it behind closed doors. This is why sometimes we see, like, the most wholesome celebrities are the ones that we come out and they are like, "Oh my god," like, "Ooh." Yeah, you say Lex is a joke now. I think the thing with Lex Friedman is that he was asking genuine questions and having genuine conversations. And now I feel like he's sucking up so much to billionaires and tech and these people that it's become so much of a clout chasing game that I feel like he lost um the way. I feel like he lost the way. Is she live to answer questions? Is that your question? um Oh, you watched The Shining and Stanley Kubrick was planting stuff. Yeah, I do believe that Stanley Kubrick. So I will say one thing about Stanley Kubrick, which I know he turned out to, like, be very, not great about things. But with context, everybody was an asshole at the time. I love Stanley Kubrick. He's one of my idols. Ever since I was a kid, he was someone that I idolized, that I wanted to grow up and be like him, and absolutely huge fan of his. And so with that, basically, there was, like, this psychic named Sloan Bella who I like on YouTube, and Sloan channeled, and this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying to discredit all of these things. I love these things more than anybody. We just have to have discernment. So she channeled Stanley Kubrick, and one of the things that was so interesting that she said he was showing her in this, like, channeling kind of like mediumship, is that he was showing her that he would tell a story in the movie, and he said some people would have a red energy and some people would have a blue energy, the watching in the theater. Like, he showed her a theater, and some of the people were red and some of the people were blue. And he would say, like, these red people are only able to see the surface story, the story that I'm telling. But then there's these people with the blue energy who are able to see a deeper story within the story, and they understand more deeply what I'm saying underlying what the subtext is. And that he said that, like, that's what he really loved about filmmaking, is being able to tell a flat out story, but then having other people be able to see the secret story that's underneath it. And, one of the things that she talked about with The Shining, she brought up that movie. Now, I actually haven't watched it in a while. I've seen it so many times. And I did know that it was also about, like, kind of having these secret abilities, and that there was something about, like, kind of trying to get the kids who had secret abilities and, like, kind of harnessing some energy from them. That was what I thought that the subtext of the movie was. She says that the subtext of the movie is that there is some, I won't say the word on TikTok, some child abuse happening underlying, that there's child abuse happening underlying in a sexual way, and that is a bit of the secret story that's happening underneath the surface of this movie. So I need to go back with what she said and see if that resonates with me. Um, Someone said that Snoop Dogg can't sell out. I mean, Snoop Dogg is a character of Snoop Dogg so hard. Like, I don't even know if Snoop Dogg knows who he really is anymore, or if he's just playing it. Do you think he was observing their auras in some more perhaps generalized capacity represented by the two colors? I'm not sure. Sloane said she couldn't tell what he meant by these things. If he was just trying to show the difference between people, or if he was just trying to see, like, these people are more seers, these people can, like, tell more out of the story. What's your take on the girl on the plane that said this motherfucker's not real? I said it in the beginning and I'll say it again. She was a Karen. Everybody wanted it to be more. They wanted it to be reptilians, they wanted it to be stuff, but she was a Karen, and she was a Karen who she was lucky that the beginning of the confrontation didn't get filmed, because the crazy girl on the plane, she was lucky that the beginning, and that's what I felt from the beginning. I'm like, "This is just a regular old Karen and having a meltdown in public, probably because, she maybe took a little Ambien or something. Maybe she took a little drink, maybe both. I don't know what she did, but she was probably a little zooted from the airport. She was on her way to a cruise. She did end up doing an interview with someone where she said she saw nothing. And then that's the same thing with this kind of truth bias or truth seeker bias. People will say, oh, well, now she's saying it was nothing. Why didn't she just say it was nothing from the beginning? Because she's a marketing expert and she wanted to try to build a company that she could market in that period of time so that when she went on all these podcasts, she would know that people were going to click on her company. But she was just a regular old Karen who was mad at the person sitting next to her. Well, there was already people from the plane. Carrot Top was on that plane, first of all, and Carrot Top was like, this woman was an asshole. And then there was another woman that was on the plane who said that day that she was sitting next to a black guy and that basically she accused him of stealing her AirPods. And then when she said in this interview when she's told that motherfucker's not real, she means like real in like, not reality way, but like to be a real one. You're not a real one. Like you're not a real, like you're not a real one. So it's like she wasn't you said, is this a film or an event? It was like a hugely viral thing that happened on social media because someone filmed a woman freaking out on a plane. And then she kept doubling down. She kept doubling down and being like, oh, afterwards she was still yelling in the airport. And yeah, the fake story was better. I know the fake story was better, but I didn't believe it. I never believed it because I was like, do you think the whole thing was planned for marketing? No. I think she had a Karen moment. She is so lucky that people didn't record the beginning of the argument because if they recorded the beginning of the argument, it would have been the same thing as the Karen that started the apocalypse in 2020. Remember the Karen that started the apocalypse? The one that basically there was a black guy that was bird watching. Remember, he was in uh, Central Park. He was bird watching, and then she started making up stuff about him. And then he said, "Put your dog on a leash," basically because he's trying to watch birds, and you got a dog not on a leash, so he can't watch his birds if your dog is going to be chasing the birds. So he says, "Put your dog on a leash." And then she goes off on him and then calls the cops and doubles down and pretends to be the victim. And this woman literally she was the inciting incident of the downfall of humanity in the world. Don't forget the original Karen. He has his own show now. What is his show? A bird watching show? So, like, that whole thing, that's what the same thing was with the woman on the plane. The woman on the plane was like another version of that. It was just we didn't see the beginning on the thing. There's footage of the officers allegedly interviewing the individual who she was claiming wasn't real and he wasn't black. If they were to speculate, maybe Middle Eastern or Greek. But I saw all of that stuff. They ended up saying that wasn't him. That was just like some guy that was in the airport. The guy she was fighting with was on the plane. That was just a guy that was in the airport who just was like caught in the crossfire. Like that guy was so unrelated. I did see that video. And then there's another video of her outside of the airport, basically kind of doubling down, saying the same stuff. Then she starts saying that the plane is going to blow up because she was embarrassed. The same way that Karen with the dog was like, oh, I'm scared. I'm more scared. I'm scared for my life. It was the same thing. You think you're wrong and something did happen on the plane. You should look at her interview. She admitted it. Eventually, when her company was ready, because she wanted to make something of it, because she knew she had the eyes of millions of people, she ended up doing her little anti-bullying website because she was bullied, according to her. And so she ended up doing an anti-bullying website and then went on a podcast. Look it up. And then she said on the podcast, she stalls and stalls and stalls. Oh, and you know what's a great one to watch? Uh, Gosh, what's his name? Behavioral Arts. Behavioral Arts on YouTube. His name is Spidey. He's a mentalist and a body language expert. And he broke down the interviews of her and he broke down that podcast and he broke down her original stuff, all with body language stuff. So he did a really good job with it. He always breaks down things really cool. I really like his stuff. And she goes on a podcast and she keeps stalling. You said she's been threatened. Well, that's kind of the point of the topic today is that people feel so truth seeker bias that they want it to be true. They want it to be true. They want it to just not be a regular old Karen that unfortunately we didn't get 5 minutes earlier of the video, you know? What if they told her to fake that interview? She didn't really sound the same voice. Yeah, because she was probably zooted on the plane. And also, like 100 million people watched that video and she sounded like Minnie Mouse. I would change my voice too on a podcast. If 1 million people said that my voice sounds like a Minnie Mouse, I would absolutely make sure that my voice sounded different, you know? Like, and her makeup is professionally done. People say it's a different person. She literally has professionally done makeup. Like she really went to the nines for that, you know? She even went to another airport dressed in the same exact outfit because and then TMZ happened to be there. Like she didn't tip off TMZ. She's literally a marketing executive. You said you'll find the thing where there's an engineer who used some software to compare footage of her on the phone versus her on the plane. Not the same individual. I don't believe it. She had professionally done makeup. She was giving an official statement. If I let me say it, if I filmed you from a profile view, low from a chair, that you're standing from this angle, you're not gonna say it's you either. I'm telling you, it was a different angle. She was probably drunk. She yeah, she did use the same outfit. Yeah. You said, "I'm a conspiracy theorist, and if there ever was one, but I don't trust 90% of the stuff online." I agree. Yeah, the one of her filmed on the podcast. But it is her. But it is her. You know? Like, it really is. People meet me in person and say I look different as well, you know? Like, that's just reality. People look different in different videos. Someone being filmed from a low angle from the side profile of a back facing camera is going to look different than professional makeup, brand new Botox, and perfectly, uh, like most people don't even look like their own selfies. Like, that's the thing that's so crazy about some of these people who say, like, oh, Britney's not the same person. This one's not the same person. It's like, have you ever taken a selfie and then had someone else take a picture of you? Mm. You ever ask someone to take a picture of you and then you're like, "Oh, hell no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not gonna post that." And then you take a selfie of yourself and you put it at the exact right angle with the exact lighting, and she had her makeup professionally done in that. The sensational conspiracies are more fun than the mundane. They are, but then they actually discredit the real stuff. Yeah, makeup can shapeshift people. Exactly. Her makeup was professionally done also on the podcast. When people get their makeup professionally done, like you see people on their wedding day, that's the reason they look so damn good on their wedding day. Yeah, you have a friend that looks different in every angle. Rebecca says she's seen me all dressed up and I look different. Well, thank you. Mhm. Is it true that everybody in LA gets work done? No, of course that's not true. Why would that be true? I never had anything done. Most of my friends have never had anything done. Um, it's just kind of like the celebrities do. And then if a celebrity doesn't, y'all act like the person needs to go into hiding. Like people look like Brooke Shields was just at this event and everybody's acting like Brooke Shields is gum on the bottom of their shoe because she doesn't have plastic surgery right now, because she doesn't have Botox and filler in this stuff. I'm like, there's definitely some celebrities who don't have it too, but most people don't, most people that I know don't. Yeah, the focal length and the lens really affect the face too. I know. I really hate when I film stuff. for, like, professional things, and they got that wide I can see that, like, big professional camera with that big professional wide lens, and I'm like, "Oh, my head is about to look so fat." Like, on Leo King's podcast, David Palmer, he has all the best equipment in the world, but that lens, it's a big professional wide lens, and oh my god, I wanted Ozempic right into my head because my head was so fat. I couldn't it was, like, this much wider. I was looking at myself like, "What the hell happened here?" You know? And that's the thing too, why a lot of times people look very different on podcasts because podcasts a lot of times are using really high quality lenses that are giving a different perception and, ugh, I always not Ozempic, girl. So, but I was like, it happens to me all the time. Do I do ceremonial magic? No, I don't. I'm not really, I like my more, quantum mysticism. I like to trust in the universe. You know, I don't really, engage in anything like that, because for me, it's not really, I'm trusting in the greater picture, the greater purpose, all of that. Mama D, you said, "Wait, am I too late?" Sadly, Mama D, you are, because we're about to stop here. We're about to yeah, I look different on TikTok than I do on YouTube. Exactly. I do, because one is the front-facing camera of the phone, and then this one is a very wide lens that is zoomed in. He Bree said, "I didn't notice a huge difference in the Leo King podcast, but I would not want to look at myself while recording that." I know, I would kinda, like, catch a glimpse over because he has screens. He has such, like, an awesome professional, whole full-blown studio, and so he has the screens and everything, but then I would, like, look over and be like, "Oh, dear god, my head is so big." You're flipped to the other side on TikTok too? Oh, right, yeah, because then it's mirrored, right? So then it's also the opposite side of the face, right? Because then I think does my 444 backwards on TikTok? That's how I know if it's getting flipped or not, because I can't usually tell. I don't know what my good side is. I can never tell. People are like, "What's your good side?" I'm like, "I don't know, you tell me. I can't tell." But that's how I know if the 444 is backwards, but then again, I get confused when I look at the 444 because then in the mirror, it's backwards. So then I don't know if I'm wearing it forward or backwards, and then I'm just like, "You know what? I'm just putting it on." My skin. Thank you. Um, so for my skin, I'm very simple, but I like to use high quality, products. So I really like this company called IS Clinical, and also SkinCeuticals. So both of them are, really high quality skincare. They're kind of like the cosmeceutical grade, which is, it's basically, cosmetic. And oh, hello. This is my friend Road to Roses, guys. She's actually Miss Napa Valley right now. So how amazing. And like, I mean, everything. She is a champion of bodybuilding right now and body competitions, physique competitions, everything. She is writing her theses and things to be peer reviewed. It is everything. And now she is Miss Napa Valley. Oh, you're in Napa. Oh, cool. Okay, what was the any ETA on when you'll be starting the hypnosis, somewhat digital QHHT sessions? Probably, not until after I come back from my ayahuasca ceremony. So, I'm not fully sure yet. I may or may not consider starting in July, but I think I might just end up doing it in late August or September. Yeah, SkinCeuticals is amazing, and IS Clinical is very similar, and basically, I'm a very simple gal. I'm a very simple gal. IS Clinical, so IS Clinical, and it's basically like a cosmeceutical grade, and it's I use, like, the washes. There's a called the complex cleanser on IS Clinical, or I'll use the SkinCeuticals, Simply Clean, I think it's called. And those are basically face washes that have like enzymes in them. So they're very gentle, but they have a little bit of exfoliation. So every time it gets exfoliated, because then I don't use a ton of products. And then I use like a moisturizer, and I really like the moisturizer from Agent Natur, which it's really expensive. The holy oil, it's really expensive. But it lasts. I use the tiniest little bit, and my face products, they're expensive, but they last so long because you need the tiniest little bit. And if you get like a little like face sponge, you can use basically a drop for your wash, and you just use a couple drops for your thing. You don't need 10-layer skincare. You really don't. Um Someone said, "Wait, did Road to Roses explain the pain number thing?" Yes, she did. She put that on the map, guys. She put that on the map. Aw. Oh, now you can enjoy the fruits. Yes. Which microphone am I using? It's this Shure microphone. It's not the one that Joe Rogan has. It's one model down from that. It's one that can plug directly into the computer and doesn't need a USB. It's the like M something, the Shure mic M something, the new model. So it's not the Joe Rogan one. It's not the Lex Friedman one. It's just the model down from that. Okay, guys. We're gonna be finishing out our Tuesday night live here, but I'm gonna just look at your last couple comments here. Um, let's see. Appreciate the honesty. I study the arts, and as much as I can, I find it helps to shape my reality the way I want. I relate to your reptilian experience. Been around those things a lot my whole life. If you or anyone is ever in a bind, remember silence is compliance. Think of something funny. Don't feed the fear. Okay. Do I think the moon landing was fake? I don't know if we went to the moon, but I do think Stanley Kubrick directed it. The video, I don't think the video is real. You think they got a video to work on the moon? No, that's impossible. There's no way they did. I'm not saying that nobody ever went there. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% convinced either way. It could go either way, but I know that video is fake. And it has Stanley Kubrick written all over it because I love him so much and I know his style. And we know there's no way in hell that they got a camera to work. And also, we know that if Stanley Kubrick did do it, then it was filmed in the UK because he was afraid to fly and he never would leave the UK. And he filmed everything there. Even like in Eyes Wide Shut, he was afraid to fly. So they literally had him. So those like New York scenes, everything was filmed indoors, was in, UK. But then the stuff that was filmed in New York was filmed by the second unit, and that was the assistant director who did that. Okay, guys, well, we are done for our Tuesday night live. So good seeing everyone. Um, join in next week. Um, do you think the Hollywood Leslie? I don't know who Leslie Mann is. Oh, the one that's married to Judd Apatow. I don't know if we look like we don't look alike in real life, but maybe on video. Okay, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Oh, you ordered Grendel for the kids, a great book. It's a little dark, and it's a little dark. Take a look. You can read it yourself first and see. I mean, I don't know how old your kids are, but it is a little existential. I read it as a senior in high school. So, look into egregores. You might find the answers there. Um, the egregores as the answer to what? I forgot what we might be referencing. But I do know what egregores are. Okay, guys. Well, um, thank you for being here, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye, everybody, and make sure you like the live. Oh, and one last thing, I do have some spaces open for my one-on-ones. I finished out my first month of one-on-ones, so I have a couple of extra spaces now. So if you want, you can go to the link in my bio, and I'm taking intake for my one-on-ones. And those are either you could do a month or 3 months. And kind of the things we focus on is Maybe if you want to like step more into your purpose, or maybe you want to like release some type of guilt, or reframe things, or step more into a more purposeful life, or you're going through a transitional phase, or you kind of want to focus on maybe what is my purpose? Why did my soul choose this? All those type of things. So, take a look. There's information in my link below. I put it on my YouTube as the first link now, because last week it was all um, in the mix and it was hard to find. So if you guys are looking to do the one-on-ones, it's 4 1-hour sessions or 12 1-hour sessions, and we can kind of break those up however you want. So anyway, guys, go check that out and I will see you soon.